If you ask yourself questions, you will start to get answers, and I think that it is related to the other bullet points, and you can't really be healthy or move forward in pursuit of your health if you're not aware of what you need to work on.
Welcome back to the Martial Mind Podcast. I'm Ed, I'm here with Brian and John, and today we're going to break down the archetype of the warrior in the garden. So we've all heard the phrase before, better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Now, this phrase speaks of preparedness, the martial in martial art. Here on the Martial Mind Podcast, we often relay how either doing martial arts, i.e. living a life of constant practice and discipline, or hearing the wisdom of other martial artists, Sifu Raul, Sifu Lloyd, Sifu Greg Zilb, how we've learned from them and how that shaped our worldview and helped us in many ways overcome ourselves and our own demons, right? So then let us for a moment extrapolate further out the name of our own show, the Martial Mind Podcast, Martial Mind, to be martially minded, martially aware, and have the mind shaped and molded into one that best suits the highest class of martial artist, This not only refers to a good fighter, and certainly not, form eaters and hobbyists and people that just do it for clout or whatever reason, no-touch knockout dudes. This refers more greatly to the image of the statesman Sifu, the cultural head of the town square, the wise sage with demon hands, the one you can count on, an enlightened mind and fist, This concept has been in my mind whirling like a hurricane since this show's inception, and it has led me to creating an image, an allegory of a warrior who I have dubbed to be the warrior in the garden. Because I feel like, and to converse for a second, I feel like the warrior in the garden, he doesn't just sit there. We've discussed this on the show before. He's not just sitting in the garden. He has to live. He's got to do his life. And it's much like, like the first thing he is the warrior. So the first thing I thought of was that scene in the 300. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
The scene in the 300 where he's like, "What is your profession?"
Yeah.
Can we play that real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Pleasant surprise. This morning's full of surprises, Leonidas.
We've been tricked. There'll be more than a few hundred. This is a surprise.
Silence.
This isn't an army.
We heard Sparta was on the warpath. And we were eager to join forces.
If it is blood you seek, you're welcome to join us.
But you bring only this handful of soldiers?
So the ones on the
against
right are the
Xerxes?
Greeks, and
Yes.
the Greeks
Yeah, I
are
was wrong to
upset
expect
because there's
Sparta's
only
commitment to at
300
least match our
Spartans.
own.
But then Leonidas has a point to make.
Doesn't it? You, there. What is your profession?
I'm a potter. So,
And you, Arcadian. What is your profession?
sculptor, sir.
You?
Blacksmith.
Spartans! What is your profession?
What's the point of the scene? What's Leonidas trying to prove to the Greeks about the Spartans, right? That first and foremost, what they are killers. They're warriors. That's the first thing that they are Spartans, soldiers. And that's what he says after. See, I brought more soldiers than you did. Because they're all like other dudes that just picked up a spear and decided to go to war to fight the Persians. But they're the ones that, that's what they do. But you think that they just go home and, hang out with a spear?
Sitting there just
sitting there
just
with a
waiting
sword
for the
and
next
shit.
war.
Yeah, no, it's not like that. They are the warriors in the garden. They are first and foremost the warriors. When they're home, they're tending to the fields. They're helping with society and life, right? They probably have professions of their own outside of that. I'm sure after seeing the scene in the movie, you, like I, were motivated to be those Spartans. The first time I saw the movie, I was like, those are the most badass dudes on planet Earth.
Especially being like 14. I was just like,
yeah.
yes!
Oh, dude, This Is Sparta was my ringtone.
But you want to be irrefutable. You want to be undeniable. And in the words of David Goggins, uncommon amongst uncommon men, right? And this is who I believe that warrior in the garden is. That's who I believe him to be. The warrior in the garden does not bask in the garden. He tends to it. But he is first the warrior and the gardener second. I would imagine he would have to live his life by a certain set of principles, like we all do. But what if we could list them? What if we could synthesize them and live by them ourselves? This list of principles is what I would like for the three of us to debate today. I want to discuss what we think some of these bullet points would be. and then arrange them by importance, right? And my vote for number 1 is accountability, right? The warrior must hold themselves accountable at all costs. The I broke the egg allegory. It's not that the egg was slippery. It's not that my hands were wet. It's I broke the egg. That's it. There is no emotion attached to it, right? We often attach our egos to blame or fault. However, if we can take responsibility and maintain our own accountability without an outside motivator, then we are above motivation and can rely on discipline. Unobjective accountability prevents us from feeling the emotional blow of taking the blame. There is no time wasted feeling sorry for yourself or beating yourself down. Just the acceptance and forward motion of progress. It is what it is mentality. Not to say you shouldn't care, but that you should make grand efforts to not take things personally and accept accountability for things with and in certain circumstances outside of your control, especially if those things outside of your control could have been prevented by mindful preparedness. You know, an example, boarding your windows before a massive storm. If your glass shatters, you could blame the hurricane,
Right.
But really you're to blame because you didn't take the steps necessary.
The opposite
You
of
know?
just, I'm going to go kayaking during the hurricane.
Right, exactly.
I'm going to go to the beach.
It's going to be sweet waves, bro. Let's hit the surf.
I'm going to open a big umbrella.
I'm going to decide.
You're going to die.
I'm going to decide to inspect my parachute in the middle of this hurricane while wearing it.
Yeah, what do you guys
I'm going
think
to go
about that?
I'm going to go wing gliding, windsurfing.
Well, yeah, I think that accountability is certainly the top tier principle that anybody who embodies the warrior's mindset needs to embrace, because if you're not able to really understand who you are and how your actions are affecting the world, that your immediate world is what I mean, not even on a grander scale, on an intimate scale, and having that relationship with your actions essentially is accountability, like understanding like this is what I'm doing, this is what I've done, and owning that. So that's a great place to start, I think. I think there's a few things to pile on from there, but as far as accountability goes, 100%.
Well, what would those few things be?
I mean,
Do you mean further to the point of accountability, or like then getting into that list of more bullet points, more?
Oh, I mean, what I mean is that there's other bullet points that I would think of as well, but accountability is certainly in the top for me as well. Yeah, if not the number one, and then at least in the top 3. Yeah.
I think what would be interesting is if today we could like list a few of them, we'll make notes, and then we could rearrange and extrapolate out. Make
Cool.
notes while we're kind of talking about it.
So I think to that point, what is super important is the idea of detaching your emotions from accountability, and just because I think what that does is it allows you to then save that emotional energy and that energy in general for what I think is almost even more important, and sometimes not seen as almost the most important part, which is the second round of consequences from what you were taking accountability for. I broke the egg or something happened, so now how are we going to respond? And if you don't have enough energy to respond or to then make good on that or to repair it, then it's you're making a bad situation worse, basically. So being able to save, almost thinking of it as saving your energy for how to grow forward from what happened. And again, like I think I speak a lot to this as having the introspection and the self-knowledge to be aware of, to understand what you are actually accountable for, and then taking full total ownership of that in whatever that means for you, and and keeping it in that purview. But yeah, so
all right. And as far as accountability goes, I think that maybe it could be a separate bullet point. I don't want to move on too early from the accountability portion, but I think that we've covered that pretty well so far. I mean, I think I got out everything I want to get out with accountability. But I think that in terms of having self-awareness, maintaining your health, I think is definitely a tenet that the warrior should embrace. And if that relates to something else, then maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.
definitely relates to accountability.
But I
though,
think taking
for
care
sure.
of yourself and making sure that you can be a warrior, making sure that you are physically fit to undertake these challenges and to be responsible for your actions. It's hard to really do anything if you're not healthy enough to do it.
That's a really good point, because I think a lot of people, I think there is a real existential importance to physical fitness and health that I think people don't look at in a very, what can be considered almost a more poetic or I guess just a poetic way, where it's like, I'm going to be physically fit because I want to look good at the beach and I want to get bitches, you know what I mean? Where it's more of like, are you physically
Curls for the girls, baby.
yeah, like are you physically fit to to be for yourself. And again, this could be a man, woman, and anything in between, to be able to provide value to yourselves and the ones around you that you love and care about. Are you able? And that could be everything in the form of services, acts of kindness, protection if necessary. Are you able to provide to provide that blanket of acts and care and protection that you would want to for your loved ones and people you care about, and that requires physical strength, dexterity, but also all the mental strength that comes with the physical, the physical savaging of your body that comes with that, and that is almost part of honing yourself into a weapon. And again, what's interesting is it doesn't even have to necessarily do specifically with martial arts. Again, you destroying your body, breaking your body down, doing a horrible CrossFit class, that gets you ready for when, let's say if you're, everyone, all your kids wake up late, you got to get someone to soccer practice, you and your wife are fighting, blah, 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 and it's just the whole day is not, and you're like, that can be easily mirrored with, you're not only mirrored with, and you can gain strength from you going through the physical hardships of exercise, but also just in general, it improving your mental state to a higher level to be able to just deal with a higher level of baseline stress to begin with. So,
you can
having the tools in the toolbox.
You can mitigate a lot of problems in your life. If number 2 is physical fitness and health, let's leave number 2 with physical fitness and health and just extrapolate further out on that a little bit.
Sure.
Because what this makes me think of is kind of like putting your oxygen mask on first.
Right.
Like I would say that the warrior in the garden, they put the first tenet would then be accountability, and I feel like the second tenet, this is what I was thinking last night when I was writing this out too, but I didn't want to say it, so I'm kind of glad we all went there together, psychically, but that number 2 is really, they put themselves first. The warrior in the garden puts themselves first,
right? Because
if they don't put themselves first, then they can't train. And if you can't train and you can't get up, if you're not training and you're not pushing yourself physically and putting yourself first and prioritizing your own physical fitness and physical health, then you can't then be there for anybody else. And also, your word doesn't really mean much when you start to help other people or give other people advice.
If you're just eating bugles with your pants off, no one really thinks that you are an authority figure on almost anything.
And that's all you do.
Exactly. I mean, like having
bugles is such a poor choice.
Like the Bill Gates health plan.
Dude, the pantsless
How to
bugle
increase
break.
estrogen any way you can.
Anyway,
anything Bill Gates eats.
Do that. No, don't do that.
How to grow breasts. Just follow Bill Gates' diet.
Bill Gates' breast diet. Yeah.
Breast engorgement diet.
Yeah, well, you're not eating any chicken breasts. You're just eating soy.
It's the Bill Gates milker map is what you got to follow. That's
the milker formula. No, but you're absolutely right in that you do have to put yourself first, and that does relate into the physical fitness and mental health of everything. Because like, if you're not true to yourself and if you can't take care of yourself, then how are you gonna possibly be able to talk about that with anyone else? Like, you can't, what is it? People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, who are you to say if you're not taking care of yourself, So it's a constant effort for a lot of people. And I think, it's an ongoing thing. It has, just like progress isn't a straight line, self-care, life is not just one continuous, homogenous thing. There's a lot of storms that come into our harbors that make these things difficult, but it's important to not let go and lose sight of that.
Totally. I think it's a good point to look at. It's like, if the knife is not sharp, it can't perform its duty. It can't perform its function if it's not honed properly. And again, I think there's something to be said about self-preservation in a way where it's not a selfish, I'm just gonna not talk to my friends for a week and put a face mask on and just eat cake and just do whatever I want because I need that. It's that's different than that's looking at it in a completely different way. Don't get me wrong, there are times for indulgences and again that kind of earned rest to be able to let go. But outside of that, I think it's more of, listen, I need to, I'm the only one who's going to be advocating for myself, and I'm the only one who's truly going to be developing myself or moving myself forward in any direction that I want. I'm the captain of the ship. So if I'm not in control and I'm not steering it, the wind is just going to take me in whatever direction. Life is just going to pull me in every direction. Life could be people, drugs, anything, and some of those things can be good, some of those things can be bad, but if you don't have a honed vision on kind of what my goals are, and again, not just goals of career and things like that, but also like kind of like speaking more to this of what person do I want to be? What person do I want to be to the other people around me? How do I want other people to view me? And not in a superficial way, but what can they, not as like, oh, they think I'm cool. It's like, can I be a form of support for people? Can I be a rock for people? Can I be that base for people? And I think that speaks true to what we've alluded to in past episodes of kind of getting back to our roots of the meaning to be a true martial artist or a true, monk, or kind of like to kind of what you're saying of that statesman Sifu, of that person who can be a rock in multiple different ways, of both intellectually and emotionally fierce and put together, and also compassionate, while also being able to give you a whooping.
Good old-fashioned whooping.
A good old-fashioned whooping if you need one.
Absolutely. I think the best thing that we could have done for ourselves was the Sober January, because it definitely kind of opened my eyes to just the futility of alcohol.
Sure.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
It's
like
fun.
a drink. And to those people out there who are like, no alcohol ever, it's a fucking,
And some people need that.
And some people need that. And like,
that.
I get it. I get it entirely. I'm just saying, like, I don't want to alienate people who are listening to the show who like to have a drink every now and then. Like, if you like to have a glass of wine with your wife at night, or your husband, or whatever, like, whatever, no big deal. As long as you're not doing it every day or even every week.
Yeah. If you want to have a 24-pack every evening, do it.
You just want to quickly down a 12-pack while no one's looking.
Just in the corner of the backyard. Just...
I am the liquor, Randy.
Stumbles down porch.
I am the liquor. Trailer Park Boys. Excellent show.
And relating to
hold on,
physical
I'm
health.
sorry. I wasn't done with my point.
Okay.
So that futility and understanding that, and understanding, like, how it's not worth it to be, inebriated, stoned.
Sure.
Ad nauseum, I could talk about this.
Sure.
It's kind of a pointless endeavor, to a certain extent. You know, like, so why be distracted by? Why go out the night before and be destroyed the next day? Why stay up too late? Why eat an edible and be on the couch till 2 o'clock in the morning? Like, like it's not worth it, and there is no point to it. And since then, like, I'm in the gym like 5-6 days a week now, and the days off is active recovery, which also to put a pin, not put a pin in, but put another bullet into the physical health thing. It's like, you got to train every day. It doesn't mean you need to train 2 gym sessions a day and a 3-hour class and 6 hours of bag work, every single day, like you're a professional fighter. But it does mean, like, take 20 minutes and do Qigong when you're sore. Like, don't talk yourself out of training because you don't know how you're going to feel later. Oh man, like Friday, my knee hurt really bad. So I couldn't do the beginning of class. And then I stretched it out, and I didn't just go home. I just stretched it out for a little bit, and I was like, all right, you know what? Let me see what I can do. Yeah. And then I ended up feeling good in sparring a few rounds. Yeah. I just didn't go crazy. I didn't throw too many kicks. I just worked on movement and hands and stuff like that, and I did what I could. And I got a good cardio session in, and I got to train, and I got to be there and be at the school, which is super important. Sure. Like, so I feel like so many people, like, they don't put themselves first, and then they let that self-talk and that like we were saying earlier, like that emotional attachment, they let that emotional attachment and self-talk get to them in the back of their head. Sure. And then they start just, like, believing, oh, I don't know if I should, maybe I shouldn't, I don't know what's going to happen, and there's this fucking spin, and you can't take people out of that spin. They have to do it for themselves. You can't stop them, because it's like stopping the earth.
Right, just getting caught in the shame dryer.
Because the earth is going 1,000 miles an hour. You stop the earth, everything else keeps moving, and that's what they feel like happen when you just like put your finger on their like spinning globe and just let it relax for a second. They're just like, ah! It's too much. It's too much, and it can't come from a place. It has to come from inside. So what you need to do is realize that, like, you need to do something every day, and it's not this thing where, oh, fuck, I didn't do my push-ups, and I didn't do my sit-ups, I didn't work out enough today, I didn't train hard enough, and I didn't feel good. It's like, did you go outside and, like, do, like, 20 lead punches and 20 reverse punches and, like, go through a basic Tai Chi form?
Or, like, go see a voice coach so you don't sound like that anymore. You know what I mean?
What?
Oh, God. I didn't do my push-ups.
But, yeah, so I apologize. I just wanted to finish that point, but you were going to say.
Yeah, so relating like to physical health itself, like specifically, it's really easy for people to say like, that working out and taking care of yourself. Yes, we view it as like as being paramount, and there are some people that work out just for vanity, just for aesthetics. They say,
Sure.
and it's easy to say, well, that's shallow. Like, who cares what you look like, blah blah blah. And like, I'm just speaking from another person's perspective. I do think aesthetics are a thing. Of course,
Sure.
like there's a lot of motivations.
The
to working
outside
out,
can severely reflect the in.
but
Changing the outside.
But when it comes to like, well, how do you measure your health, and is mobility considered a part of your health? Because if mobility isn't incorporated into your understanding what health is, then of course, like, you don't need to work out to be healthy when you have that worldview, when you have that mindset of like, well, I mean, I'm not an athlete, so I don't need to be athletic. And it's like, well, how many flights of stairs can you climb up without feeling in distress? Like you walk
About 1.5, I would imagine. Probably.
Yeah, like being like present in the world and being there, as an individual, and like, having to move around to different places and do different things, and, be able to take on whatever's, waiting for you, whatever is like part of the mystery of life. Hey, maybe I gotta like lift and move this box as a favor, like whatever. Like, are you in good enough shape to do that?
It's wild how differently my family and I feel about these kinds of things, because like we can talk about this ad nauseum and we just get each other,
Right.
But then like I'll go to talk to a family member about it, and I'm like, yeah, like that's why I work out every day, because like I never want to da 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 da.
Yeah.
And they just blow past everything I said and immediately go into, well, I went to the doctor and they told me that I was just fat and I needed to da-da-da-da-da, like,
they're just not connecting.
he didn't give me the right pill, and it's like, oh, they finally gave me the right pill, and it's like, you're not picking up what I'm putting down.
It's a different, you're on different radio stations.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a different wavelength.
Well, because
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
My family sees everything that I've done, and they're like, Grandma Merkel to me goes the other day, oh, your teacher's got some moves. He's got some really great moves. I saw the thing he was doing with the 2 little knives, and he was doing all the jumps and the stuff. Can you do that too? And I'm like, not as well as him, but I can. I know that form. She's like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
And they don't see it as where you started and the work that it took to get there.
Sure.
They just are like, oh, he's good at that. Like it's just like it's a talent.
I'm here, they're there.
Like every test is a talent test. Let's see how talented you are. You know what I mean? Not how much work you've put in. It doesn't compute.
Well, the tests are really just like, how good are you at not crying? That's like really. That's really.
I'm bad at not crying.
That's really what the test is.
I have cried like a little bitch after every test except my Black Sash test.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've cried and or sobbed like in the bathroom after like the last 2 or 3 tests.
I hang onto the dumpster. Purple and red sash go outside by the dumpster. I'm taking a breath.
Ed was present for my first emotional breakdown during a test, so that was pretty cool. Right?
He yelped.
Yeah.
Well,
he yelled.
I don't think I know
very
about
terrifying.
I was outside.
Which test was this for?
For high yellow.
Your last test.
Yeah,
I was the proctor. If that makes you feel any
Oh,
better.
okay. All right.
I think it makes sense now.
I forget what form. I think it was either Enbu or Yochuan, which I think it was Enbu because I'm better with the Yochuan.
It was Enbu.
It was definitely Enbu, and I just kept fudging up this one part. I knew it, but it just wasn't happening, and I just needed to. I just stopped and just screamed,
Right.
just because I had to get it out, and then I nailed it.
But would I have been your friend if I didn't push you to that point?
No,
Exactly.
Yeah. But back to what I was saying in terms of like mobility relative to health, it's like I said, it's easy to have that viewpoint of like working out is just for aesthetics, and like we all just spoke about, like it's all you put work in, you get results. You continuously work out, you get stronger and better, and consequently healthier. It really, really is a measure of health, and people that don't view it that way are just like, it's really self-sabotaging. I really do feel a way that like, if you don't think that you're fit, like you should work out, put some work in, and you will get better and more healthy and feel better. But people don't want to do that. And I think it's sad.
And I think it goes back. I know that I know it sounds a little hokey, and I know we've said it before, but I think it really rings true and it makes a lot of sense. Is that again kind of having that why and that purpose, because for me, it's definitely changed. But of course, aesthetics, looking better and things like that are, of course, involved 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Because everyone has an ego and everyone wants to feel good and make, whatever. But on top of that, I really am trying to be more mission-oriented in the way that I view my health and my ability to defend myself, my ability to generate power and kick and punch and throw and things like that.
It's like a Red Dawn type of mission-oriented, or like what are we talking about here, Ryan?
I'm here to fight the Koreans. It's like, well, that's very specific, but you're just...
I think you're like 70 years late, bud.
I'm just I'm just dressed like 1980s Patrick Swayze, just on a treadmill, just I'm here to fight the Koreans. It's like, what?
Just like bad synth music going on in the background.
Yeah. Oh,
The Kung Fury, the final survivor, or whatever the name
Kung
is.
Fury.
They literally got David Hasselhoff to do a song for Kung Fury.
That's the song I'm referencing.
Yeah,
I don't
so
recall
funny.
the actual words.
True
but-
Survivor.
True Survivor.
I think it's
That's-
True Survivor.
Yeah, that's it. Fucking majestic. I love
that's
that.
so funny. Dude, David has just having an actor be like, sure. Like, that's just like...
Because what career does he have?
Dude, they must have
What was
did-
the last thing David Hasselhoff did? He did the peck thing in SpongeBob movie.
Yeah, I was
he
going to
was
say
the
he was
boat.
in the SpongeBob movie, for sure.
He was the boat.
Yeah.
Remember they were on his back?
Yeah.
He was... Okay, he did also have a 2-second thing in Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Uh-huh.
When did you ever see that?
Oh, yeah, I did.
When he goes when he's with his father, and he's like, I tried to make a form that most pleases you, and he just turns into David Hasselhoff for a second, and then just goes back to goes back to fucking Kurt Russell.
Yeah, that was Kurt Russell. Yeah, Ego.
He was in the
Yeah.
movie for like 3 seconds, and that was it.
That'll be $11 million.
Yeah, we're gonna say he probably made like
Yep.
20 grand at being in it for like 5 seconds.
There was only one David Hasselhoff.
Literally, but
The Hoff.
the Hoff. But there again, it's trying to be more mission oriented, and again, in when I think about, I try to not get too far into almost like the Miyamoto Musashi of not getting too far into that defensive mindset of like, just like I gotta preeminently stab people just in case they want to stab me, so I stab them first. It's like trying, but I am.
So anyways, I started blasting.
but I kill everyone in the room before I get in there. But it is that idea of me thinking about that. I am super aware of like, okay, am I able to defend myself? Am I able to, and I think about scenarios like that a lot, just to be, and that's also why I work out and I want to be strong and I want to be able to hit hard and, have someone feel it when I grab a hold of them and things like that. It's important, and that's, again, for working out. That's why and I think Joe Rogan has spoken about that too, of, when he's exercising, he's like, I just think about someone trying to like kill my daughters while I'm exercising. So, cause it'd be like, okay, I'm trying to get this guy out of my house, and it's like, I know I'm tired, but like, he's not going to care about that. Like if I'm, so, trying to be more mission oriented. But again, that mission could be anything. The mission could be, I just want to look better, or that could be a time goal. By April 1st, I'm going to look like, I want to put on this much muscle, just whatever it is, to just not to be haphazard about things, to be deliberate. And again, but that could be with rest. Again, like we've spoken about, like deliberate rest. Oh, I'm this time is going to be my time and I'm going to enjoy it. Deliberate family time, deliberate, making things, putting effort and intention into things that you're doing. Don't just let the wind blow you around. Just be something. Move in the direction that you know where you want to move, and move there.
And even more so, like on top of that, like that basket of benefits, as I guess.
I like that it's in a
described.
basket.
Right, it's a
Yeah.
basket.
More than like a
you know?
Tupperware.
It's gotta be like wicker with like a linen lining.
I'm with it. It's
Because bread and various jams and jellies in there as well.
Yeah.
It's an apricot. No, nice.
Definitely apricot.
Well, welcome to the neighborhood basket. I preserved these myself.
Yeah, welcome to the neighborhood. Please don't park in front of my house.
Your garbage pails were a little bit close to my mailbox, but
Yeah,
The space is for my tenant.
I bought you a blackberry compote. Stay away from my driveway.
your bags of leaves are too fucking close to my house. You piece of shit.
They're gonna wind up all over your lawn, motherfucker. I'm not projecting. I promise.
Yeah, no.
The statement I wanted to complete was that basket of benefits, as I so eloquently put it, it arrives with the same contents. Like you get the same things out of working out, no matter what your mission is. But it's important, like no matter what that point of origin is, it needs to come from somewhere with intent. Like you were just saying, you need to have an objective. You need to be driven to get there and put the work in, or else it's just not going to happen. And that discipline, I think, is just like you were saying, is paramount to that.
And I think once you start, again, Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot, but once you start asking yourself questions and you genuinely want to know the answers to them, you'll start finding answers pretty quick. So just the idea of you even looking in or be like, why do I want to work out? And you'll start kind of hearing, you start yelling into the cave and you'll start hearing stuff come back. You'll start hearing like insecurities come up, or oh, I don't feel good about my body, or others. You'll start, once you start looking inward, you'll start kind of getting feedback from things that you're not used to hearing.
That's why I'm a big fan of. I really think that a little bit of psilocybin therapy is good for everybody, and I really think it should be something that's like a little bit more regulated medically. Like, but the problem is it's the fucking healthcare system. You know, like if you want to do it through a doctor, it's like $10,000.
Yeah.
So of course everybody's just gonna pay like $50
right.
to like their local dude and just sit in
the
their
local dude
sit in their living room and get scared for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
but
they started doing that with ketamine therapy.
Yeah, you can get like at-home kits with ketamine therapy.
Ketamine.
I've never
They
tried that.
They have clinics in the city that do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard that ketamine does a lot of good things for people.
But like you sit down like with like a psychologist, you sit down with like a neurologist, and they walk you through it, and it's like a whole thing.
And then both of you step in the bathroom and just do key bumps and hang out.
he just goes. You look over. He has an IV too. He's like, "You want to go to the park?"
Wait, was that ketamine? No.
I found this under the sink.
Oh God!
What?
I scraped these off my mom's mirror.
This was in the engine of my car before this. This is for the brakes.
Does this smell like styrofoam to you?
So we're gonna call the third bullet point self-awareness.
Well, I feel like you guys touched on something there that you know, if you ask yourself questions, you will start to get answers, and I think that it is related to the other bullet points, and you can't really be healthy or move forward in pursuit of your health if you're not aware of what you need to work on. You know, and it goes deeper into other things. You know, like you can't train things you're not capable of doing if you're not aware. Like you don't want to recklessly train or regiment yourself or you know, even, I mean,
you can't fix things if you don't know if they're broken.
Exactly. That's essentially it. I'm trying to put the words together.
No, sure.
But self-awareness, I feel like could be the third bullet point. I don't know if you guys feel like it's more or less part of the others, or if this could be the third.
I think all of these are intertwined, but I think self-awareness and self-knowledge, I think, is and honestly too.
I would say self-awareness and emotional intelligence. I feel like that's a good.
And also maybe, and again, this may be redundant, but I also think the idea of self-communication, communicating and bargaining with yourself, I think is important. I don't think enough people. I think a lot of people react to things that come from inside of them, but I don't think a lot of the time people are consciously interacting with themselves as much as they can be.
No, we're so owned by these. We're so like everything is a screen all the time, and we just fucking talk ourselves out of doing what's difficult in exchange for doing what's easy. We take breaks when we don't need to take breaks. We, rest is good. But rest is tactical. You know what I mean? Rest doesn't need to be. I don't think you need 3 days of rest. Maybe mental every now and then, but like
a vacation.
Yeah, like a vacation. But like if I'm going on vacation, I'm still gonna hit the gym. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna go on vacation and not lift. I'm looking for a hotel with a weight room at least, like to do something. And then it's like at the same time, you know, like again, like I never am happy on trips when we go, oh, we're on vacation, let's just eat shit and drink, and then you feel fucking terrible, and then you get back from the vacation, and you just need another vacation from the vacation. Yeah. It's the whole reason, first of all, I think with my business, I'm not going to be able to do the camping trip this year, but it's like another reason that like the camping trips to me weren't relaxing. Like everybody else had a lot of fun, but I was just like drinking and doing stuff and drinking and doing stuff and drinking and doing stuff and packing the truck and unpacking the truck and packing the truck and unpacking the truck.
You want to get exhausted the fun way? Let's go camping.
No, but I feel like if there was a little bit more intention into, because I brought weights with me and we didn't use them, you know? Yeah. I think if there was a little bit more intention into taking care of ourselves physically and enjoying our time as opposed to trying to be inebriated from fucking sun up to sundown, it would have been an entirely different trip. None of us would have slept through days of the trip and fucking missed time with people. You know, none of us would have felt like garbage when we got back. We would have felt refreshed and a little bit better. And I think as we get older, you know, we attach ourselves to youth. You know, and we want to do those things that we did when we were younger. And it's difficult for us to realize that the things that we did when we were younger were dumb and unnecessary and have no place in our lives as adults. You know, like, so to be self-aware of that and to be able to not be attached to that egoically means you can then not be peer pressured into drinking with everybody else who's drinking at 7 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? Right. And to be able to have that communication with yourself, you can also then have deliberation with yourself about the emotions that you're experiencing, and then therefore, once you get to that point, I'm not saying it's going to be like this for everybody from the get-go, like you can just flip a switch and be this way tomorrow. What we're talking about here is the archetype of the warrior in the garden. Like, who is this individual? Who is this? Who is this individual? What are they doing? How do they live their lives?
Right.
And what is it about them that we choose to exemplify?
And you see too that, again, the garden is not just like, oh, I'm home from war and this, that, and the third. It's also, again, the garden is when we're going camping. The garden is when we're at work. The garden
earth.
the garden is regular life. So again, it's like that idea of, okay, let's, like when I go to a hotel, I'm looking for a weight room. So at a minimum, even if I'm still eating like shit and having fun, I can at least keep the discipline of working out in the morning. Like where it keeps that, you keep that training mindset that can just kind of be, and again, that's where it comes into a lifestyle.
Right,
because lifestyle change.
Because you're going to go on vacation. You're going to go on vacation and spend thousands of dollars to go away to go in a hotel room and then have the shits all morning. You know what I mean? Like,
sounds pretty fun.
Yeah,
Continental
sounds
breakfast.
good.
Ruining someone else's toilet.
Oh.
What did you say?
Continental breakfast.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
Just like
just the world's worst eggs.
just hotel pancake shits.
Do you want bad eggs? We got a lot of them.
You want bad eggs and stale muffins?
We got half dry, half wet pancakes and lots of granola.
Do you want a lot of Special K? That's all we have is Special K.
The plumbing here is very strong. You suck down a whole human baby in those toilets.
Like one of those airplane toilets.
Just jettisoning out the side of the plane. I always had that feel. Mentally, I flush a toilet on an airplane. It's just my brain visualizes just like all that shit just jettisoning out the side of the plane, which obviously that doesn't happen.
Just someone gardening, just
getting sprayed. Just a light and mist.
their whole backyard's getting fertilized with human feces.
Their lawn and their solar panels.
And their entire pool. Just a full film over it of human shit.
Honey, why is the pool shiny? Oh, no.
There's a gasoline slick on it. That's so funny.
Right.
Yeah, I think this is a good start of physical fitness, self-awareness, and accountability. I mean, that really is like a big trifecta of this, I think.
Yeah, I think that that's a very complete overarching set of ideas for this archetype.
I have a number 4 in mind, however.
Let's get it.
Now we're moving from a triangle to a square, but that's fine. What is it, Ed? Let's go.
Creativity.
I don't think that's relevant or cool.
I'm gonna delete the whole document now. It's over.
Just write
I'm just kidding.
creativity.
Or creative,
Creativity.
Or cravity. Like,
creativity.
John,
We're getting there. Oh God. Okay, we're good. All right, we got it.
watching a car accident happen with just 2 tractors.
The reason for this, I would say, because in order to be a complete, the warrior seeks to be a complete individual, and this is another Miyamoto Musashiism. Sure. He was an author and a painter and a swordsman, but he was a swordsman first before he was anything else, right? So, being creative is tapping into, you're in communication with your higher self, man. You're somewhere else. Like, if you ever been in a situation where you're creative, especially in a group, there is a spirit that enters the room. There is a spirit in this room right now that helps us do this, and this is us being creative. This is our creativity. This is emotion. This is an exercise in creativity. That's what you're witnessing right now.
I mean, we're writing down what we're coming up with. The only thing that we came up with before was Ed's little monologue earlier, which I think was very well written, Ed.
Thank you very much.
Very well done. Good way for us to move forward with the show. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That spirit that enters the room, and I have a very, very intimate relationship with the spirit of creativity, if that's what we want to call it.
Yeah.
And that Ed and I were both
muse, right?
We're both musicians. I went to school.
He's a musician. I play guitar. There's a big difference.
But Ed is, we both have a long resume of playing music, and you have to have a relationship with creativity in that point. And there was a point, the band I was in for a while, we were a cover band, but like my buddy and I, my friend Ryan, shout out to Ryan, I miss you, dude. He moved to North Carolina.
I'm right here, but that's okay.
Yeah, no, I have my replacement Ryan now,
damn
so you've the position has been filled. Just kidding.
Drop dead.
Well, it's funny because I have him and I have my little nephew Ryan. So now if you
Pocket Ryan.
I have a pocket Ryan. Yeah.
The pair of Ryans.
He doesn't like me yet though.
I don't like you.
Every
either,
single
so.
one of my
I don't think either of us like you.
Well, it's like every Ryan I meet doesn't like me for the first year they know me. He just so happens to be a newborn.
You got to get.
He's only within the first year.
Yeah, he turned a year old the other day.
So funny.
You got to get through the warm up period with Ryan's. But
All her kids, seriously, all her kids don't like me the first like year and a half of their life, and then all of a sudden they're like, he's not that bad.
He's okay.
Yeah, well, I think that's universal. But what I was going to say, yeah, when it comes to creativity, so this band I used to be in, we would rehearse our set, and then once we were done with our material, we would jam, as they call it. But Ryan and I, we weren't, I went to school for music, so like, if you say, oh, we're in B minor, like, all right, cool, like, we're gonna do this chord progression, all right, cool, and we'll just work on that, and we'll improvise. So we'll lay down a little bit of structure, so we know what we're doing and what we can fall back to. But then everything else would be in the ether. We'd be pulling, like, from like the heavens, from somewhere. The ideas come from somewhere, and so a lot of the times it was really improvisational, really, really cool stuff that would come out. Like when I would play shows, I didn't have written guitar solos. I would play whatever I felt, you know, and it worked out very well 100% of the time. And being able to play continuously improvised, it's almost like I describe it as the moment a musician leaves their body. You can see it happen, like if there's a drummer where the instruments drop out and the drummer just gets right into a drum solo and it's just absolutely like just motoring. Like you can see it, they got this 1,000-yard stare, but they're doing some crazy shit with their body. They're very engaged physically, but mentally drawing from somewhere else. So the way that I like to describe that getting to that place is becoming mechanically fluent in order to be mentally absent, to get somewhere without you can operate your hands without thinking, but you're drawing.
It's just like fighting.
That's what I'm saying. This applies. Like this is, and that involves having a master, like a level of mastery over, like a certain foundation, a place where you want to land, and a place where you want to hold on to. So that there's some stability, so that you can cast yourself into the ether, and you get that foundation through. We talked about the basics in one of our last episodes. So like we have our basics. It's the reason why we work on them all the fucking time, because that is our foundation, and then we can extrapolate out from there. So that spirit of creativity.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, it's
a really good point.
And like there have been nights where I would be playing. And like I don't remember anything of what I did. I was just somewhere else the whole time. And I look back at the recordings, and it's like, yo, like that was sick.
Right.
Like just shredding, like technically cool stuff that sounded very unique. But like I couldn't do it twice.
It's so funny that you say that, because that links directly back to, I don't know if you were going to bring this up, but I remember Seagung telling a story about one time he was at a tournament with Shurjiao.
I was thinking of that while he was telling that story.
He was at a tournament with Shurjiao, his teacher, and he's like, I went up. He's like, I was going to do a form. I remember going up. I remember bowing to start, and then I remember bowing to finish, and I don't remember anything in between.
It's
and Shurjiao was like, Papa, that looked great, and he's like, I don't remember anything. Like I don't remember the form, and he goes, now you're starting to get it.
That's the flow state.
Now you're starting to get it.
People have talked about flow states, like Michael Jordan dangling his tongue out of his mouth. He's airborne, just jamming on people. Like that's you enter a state of flow. That's how that takes place. You need to be able to not think about what you're doing so you can be somewhere else.
Right.
Which is a really, really fascinating place to be. And you don't just start out being able to access that. You have to work to get towards that ability.
Sure.
But being able, having the ability to channel in and to be somewhere else while physically present and engaged and masterful is like, there's no other way to do that besides getting grimy and besides just putting your work in and being disciplined and then giving yourself the freedom to disappear and to become inventive, which is, it's unlike anything ever, there's not a single high or a single simulated experience that can replicate the ability to enter a flow state. And that's where this creativity comes from, is a flow state. So I think that's 100% a really good bullet point there, Ed, in creativity. He just rung my bell on that one, and I just had to let that
absolutely, 100%. Because also, like that warrior, he needs to be a complete individual in order to maintain these things. Otherwise, and you see these people. These like guys are like, I got 18 black belts, and I got 45 guns in my house. I've never touched a drop of beer in my life. Because I don't need it!
Each of my guns has a black belt.
I'm happy!
Each of his guns just have a little.
But they
black nose.
pretend that they're happy, and they're not happy. They're terrified. They're fucking scared, and that's why they're angry all the time. They're scared the world's going to end. They're scared the government's going to take them over. They're scared if Trump doesn't get back into office. They're scared if Trump gets back into office. He's a fucking lizard person now. This is how people become QAnon. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
but they're not happy. They're not happy, and oftentimes it's because, and there's you know, like there's that old guy. I shouldn't say old guy because it's not everybody, but it's like, you know, like your typical Suffolk County, Long Island blue collar. Drives a fucking dually pickup truck, and you know, I don't. That's gay.
He's
Painting?
no more than 4 feet away from your rear bumper on the parkway.
You think I'm a little girl? I'm gonna go with my easel and paint a fucking picture. It's like, yeah, do something.
Yeah, it's just a complete. Yeah,
But they don't realize then, like that, like there are a lot of times for those dudes. I feel like we don't realize that their house is their creativity. They'll be like, oh, you know, I built this bar in the back.
Exactly, but like they don't think about it like that.
They don't think about it like that. And if you could just honor it for what it is,
Right.
then you could open yourself up to all different kinds of creativity.
Yeah, because creativity is more than just painting. It's the ability to draw from the unknown. It's
Right.
the ability to pull something out of mystery, out of that dark pool.
And you know what's funny too? I think there is something to be said about that with being deliberate, not only in your actions but also your perspective, because in doing that, it allows you to honor the things around you, which is also a form of appreciation, but appreciation through actually understanding the implications of you having that thing in your life and you interacting with it in the way that you do. You know, so the idea of truly, you know, not just being like people who are just living, who are just idling basically, you know, or just have their cars just in neutral and you're just going down a slight hill, just like, you know, hitting kids in garbage pails, just, you know, where you're like
Just towing a boat that's just coming off the trailer.
just taking out like sedans. Just,
Whose boat is that? I have no idea.
I don't know.
Whose car is it?
I don't know. But the idea of, you know, people who just will be like, yeah, my family, and you know, and they just kind of like, or my family, or my house, or my physical abilities, or my significant other, and they kind of just like, yeah, they have moments, you know, of course they enjoy it and everything, but it's not deliberate in the sense of like where they sit down sometimes and they actually appreciate what they have, or they actually, you know, so many times like I'll be with my family or I'll be with you guys or with other people and I'll be doing something and I'll just like look at all of you and I'll really have I'll have conscious thoughts of like, man, this is awesome. Like, look at this, you know, and like how many people don't do that because they're just like wrapped up in shit. And then 40 years goes by and you're like, I didn't say this to this person. I didn't say this to this person. And what's funny too is when my grandpa was, you know, in his last, you know, probably like, maybe like 2 or 3 months of being alive, he basically, he like put all of his grandkids on the spot. I like walk in and my aunt's there and he's just like, I'm like, hi Poppy, how you doing? He's like, good. And he's like, so, and I was like, oh, okay, you know, and he was like, is there anything that you want to say to me that like, because he was like ready to go. He's like, he's getting everything in order. He was like, you know, he's still in that like, you know, vice president mindset of like, we got to get all this in order. If there's anything you want to say to me, let's get this going, you know. Yeah. But I was like, he was like, if there's anything that you want to say to me, you know, and I was like, no, not really. I'm like, because I say it to you all the time.
Yeah,
you know, and there is things that I. Of course, you know, you can always think of more things you'd want to say after the fact, of course. But I genuinely felt that where I'm like, I've thought about, in a productive way, this is where me thinking about people dying matters. Because I was like, no, because I say it to you all the time. I say everything to you all the time, knowing that this time was going to come.
Right.
And then it came to fruition. And then I was like, no, because I tell you this stuff every day that I see you. So no, and I could say that confidently.
I think that's beautiful, man. I really think that's beautiful, and I think that's something that, like, a lot of people can live their whole lives without understanding.
2 Fs.
And it's honestly, it's a skill too, being able to be deliberate with your appreciation and observe the moment and
totally
and live like when they say live every day as if it's your last. It doesn't mean like, you know, let's go out and get hammered, you know,
skydive every day.
Like, it's time,
jump out of a plane.
It's time to get irresponsible.
It's like every bucket list movie. It's like I jumped out of a plane and then I climbed a mountain and then you had $2 million to do your bucket list real quick, you know,
real quick, 6 weeks, let's get the shit done.
Yeah,
but it's living every moment as if it's your last is not an excuse to be irresponsible. It's exactly what you were talking about. It's about being deliberate in every single moment and making sure that you're get in tune with yourself enough to know how you're feeling and understanding your relationship with other people and being secure enough with yourself to put it out there, you know, and to allow yourself to be vulnerable, you know.
Yeah, vulnerability is a form of strength.
100%.
It is. But sorry, could you finish?
I mean, I'm just kind of that's the sort of where the stream was going, is that it's just, you know, that whole getting it all out there, leaving it all out there, you know, leaving it all on the field per se.
Yeah.
You know, and being really deliberate with your intent. I think that's an excellent point.
And I think the fifth point, if you guys can agree with me.
I'm not ready. I'm just kidding.
Moving on to a new shape again. What is it? Now it's a pentagon.
Community oriented. I was going to say family at first, but I think community is...
Well, yeah, family looks like a different thing to a lot of different people.
Yeah,
all of our
community
families
is more
look different.
general.
Community is a more general term because, like, you know, you want to understand how your actions are going to affect... You know, there's a reason why you don't throw the wrapper out. And if it's not like the planet will eat the wrapper eventually, it's like maybe you don't want it to end up on like Mrs. Q's lawn. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
So, like little things like that. You know what I mean? Like I play music sometimes at night, and I don't want to bother my landlord, so I make sure I keep my music low enough that it's just nice in my living room.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I don't vacuum the cat litter at night. I just let it go until the morning.
Right.
Because if they go in the litter box and they you know, spray, shoot litter across the bathroom.
I don't make my smoothie of nuts and bolts past 12 a.m. anymore.
That too. You know, I don't make protein shakes at night when I get home from class because my blender is like, there's no fillers in my protein powder, so it doesn't mix great.
Blending metal.
You know what I mean?
Just
so like you like have to use a blender. So so it's like, but the blender's like. It's not like a nice Ninja blender. It's a nice blender.
Got a pull start.
My brother-in-law got it for me, but it's just like a basic blender. There's no sound dampening technology whatsoever. So you turn it on, and it's just like, what?
It's just like two hair dryers, like rubber banded together, like that kind of decibel level.
Yeah. It's insanely loud. It's so loud that Jenny's like, oh, when it turns on, you know,
just immediate panic.
But I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but like just thinking about that, community minded, trying to be the best thing that you can, you know, like I straight up told somebody in class the other day to stop acting like a little bitch, and I meant it, and that was how I was spoken to, because it's kind of a wake, especially for a grown man.
This kid was 9.
This kid was 33, so
It's a 9-year-old.
It's kind of like a wake-up call, you know? It's like, like phrases like that are harsh, but they shock you kind of into understanding. And then a couple days later, I texted that individual, and I was like, listen, I just want you to know that I don't want you to take what I said to you personally. That's how I was spoken to when I was coming up, and it helped me. And I'm trying to do the same thing for you. And they texted me back, and they were like, I trust you implicitly. Like, I understand why you're doing what you're doing.
There's something to be said, I think, about, you know... and
I'm sorry, but I'm saying to worry about the effect that not just your actions, but your words and everything have on the community.
Sure. And again, that idea of you know, first... You know, I heard this idea recently of talking about, like, first, second, and third consequences. Like, thinking broader scope about things, and that can get, for someone like me and anyone else who overthinks, you're kind of always thinking like that, but to a point where it can become paralyzing, where it becomes more of a crutch. But there is importance in that, of being like, what are my actions going to do? What is the reaction going to be to these things, and not just be like, I just act because I want to. And it's like, okay, well, you're either an animal or you're a child, you know. So thinking about that, but to your point, I think, as a quick aside, you know, and I've dealt with people at different levels of sensitivity. Of sometimes, you know, you have people that are you know, don't give a shit about how they speak to people, and they're like, well, you just got to deal with it. And it's like that. I don't think that's correct. But then you have other people that are like, no, it's always about the delivery. It's always about that. And it's like, no, it's not, because sometimes
you just got to be honest.
Yes, right? because sometimes there is actual practicality and utility in being like, if you see that, like, stuff isn't working, or you're trying to be like, hey, communicative, and be like, hey, this is how I feel about this. Sometimes you got to be like, you're being an asshole right now. And I'm always at odds with my therapist about this, because he's like, that doesn't really work. And I'm like, yeah, but it does. Fuck you. No,
and your goddamn degree.
Dave, I love you. I love you, and you're amazing. But
he didn't text me back.
He
didn't. No, he never did.
Oh.
I texted him, he never texted me back. Bastard.
Uh-oh.
Well,
I mean, he texts me all the time.
Just sends John nudes.
It's like just bathroom selfie.
Just awkward.
I'm going to Miller's right now. Do you want to come?
No one wants to go to Miller's. Right?
Dude, I don't think I've ever had a good meal at Miller's.
Miller's Live.
It's like there's not a kitchen back there. It's like a set of microwaves. You know, it's like
They call him Chef Mike. The microwave.
Chef Mike. But there is something. But because for me, I look at it as it has, like you said, a certain shock value where sometimes people don't communicate or take in or perceive proper communication the way you want them to. Like if you communicate well and another person doesn't, there's some dissonance there, and then the communication can break down. It's almost like a different language or a different dialect.
Yeah, and sometimes there's too many words, and like there's so many words that they just like it's just like.
Yeah, because sometimes being like you're being an asshole, and they go oh, and then it shocks the system, and then you're kind of able to get in a little bit more. But what were you going to say, John?
When it comes to communication, there's a lecture that I listened to. There was a point in my life where, since I dropped out of college, full disclosure, where, I just kind of still had a craving to learn some shit, generally,
Sure.
I do that a lot. And one of those things was University of Toronto, there's a lot of syllables I added there. The University of Toronto had these lectures that they released for free on Audible, and I downloaded a bunch of them, and one of them was on communication. And it was really fascinating to listen to this because the professor described that there was either 5 or 6 points of interference between interpersonal communication, which is it's all relative to perception. So there's a way that I hear myself speaking to you. There's a way that I perceive you listening to me. There's a way that you hear what I'm saying to you. There's a way that you perceive how I'm perceiving you. And that's, I think, 4 or 5. I don't know.
I think that was
but
4.
And then there's a few other that extrapolate out from there.
Right.
And it was just really interesting to see, like, these are all the little, cracks in the pavement, so to speak. These are all the opportunities that we have to miscommunicate with each other, to be misinterpreted. And external interference is another one too. Like if you and I are trying to have a conversation and Ed is just ripping a leaf blower in between us.
Ed is just screaming.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another point of interference. So the But point being is that, like,
Sorry,
when you say, like, you're properly communicating with someone, it's like, yes, that is exactly what it appears to be from your own perspective or your own, the way you're seeing yourself. But to have really deliberate and uninterfered with communication hinges on many points. It's not to refute anything that what you're saying at all.
No.
Like, being deliberate is, the axiom by which that swings.
It's all the time and place, where to place certain ways you say stuff.
Right, but being deliberate is the only point from which any
Sure.
sort of communication that's meaningful can come from.
Sure.
But for someone to not understand, or for you to be misjudged, or for the message to not quite land, may not be your fault either. Even if you're
Right.
deliberate. So it's just, and I'm not trying to refute anything. It's just something
you're
that I
not.
kind of wanted to, kind of peel back those layers
Sure.
and be like, yeah, communication can get really fucked up without any of us meaning for it to.
And I think maybe this could even be a sub point of either kind of it's kind of within communication and being community oriented is to your point is having sympathy and empathy in a proper way, because it's so easy to, if we have a disagreement, be like, Ed's being an asshole, or Ryan's being an asshole, as opposed to I try to do my best to think about, okay, why could potentially someone be thinking like that? Or where's the miscommunication coming from? And in me being kind of, I feel like a pretty socially in tune person, I have a, pretty good handle on how you guys are as people and how, our people who I talk to, who I'm close to, I have a good understanding of what their tics are, where kind of they feel about certain things, and same probably with me to you guys. So for me to be like, it's very easy to be like, oh, they're being a fucking dickhead. But back to kind of that governing Sifu role of that is part of being honed, is also being honed socially and having proper communication skills.
Yeah,
Jordan
it's like
Peterson
how
talks
sometimes, I'm sorry, it's like how
okay.
sometimes when you hear me vent about people, I'm like, whoa. And then when I actually approach a situation, I'm not like that at all.
Right.
Because I'm just getting out what's inside to you.
Because it's like what Jordan Peterson of like the idea of of honing yourself to be articulate and to communicate properly. You become like a weapon. If you're like knowledgeable and you know how to speak, it's like that's like most of the battle right there. But I think in the sense of being that to an idealistic point like that again that kind of like leading Sifu, that kind of community head, and again that could be at different levels. That could be actually leading a community, leading a school, being kind of the point person in your family or a friend group, or just trying to be a good, respectable human being that can kind of take charge in situations if necessary. Is being able to communicate properly and see where people are coming from, because you can't potentially lead or communicate with people, or even at a minimum, and this is important for being a martial artist, resolving conflict and de-escalating if you can't communicate with people. Because if you're just like bah, 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 and you're broadsiding each other like you're fucking warships, as opposed to being like, okay, so they said this, that's kind of pissing me off. All right, so I mean, if I know them, why could they potentially be saying this? Where is the miscommunication? Same thing. Let me detach emotionally a little bit from this. Because there is being able to detach your emotions is I think a skill, and sometimes a survival skill, and a skill of growth, of not being completely glued to your emotions and how you're feeling about something. Being able to be like, all right, I feel this, but then being able to and detach and be like, okay, now you can look at your feelings, like, okay, I felt this, they did that. Let me look at all this and try to figure out why before I just react. Because then you're not able to communicate. It could lead to an escalation. It could lead to physical violence. It could lead to death even at times. Or it could just lead to a breakdown in relationships. You not having a strong of relationships with friends or family. You not being able to communicate properly. And also think about even your growth through education, career. If you can't communicate, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. You're stunting your own growth, because so much of life is interpersonal communication. So much of it is social. We're social beings. And you think if you can't communicate your emotions or understand emotions or intentions for yourself or coming from somebody else, that's part of your toolkit that needs to be honed for you to navigate through the world and kind of, do what needs to be done.
And exactly to everything you just said, to be a community leader requires someone to be diplomatic, and you can't be diplomatic without having proper communication skills.
Right.
I don't think you could have proper communication skills without having a level of self-awareness. So, like,
exactly,
this whole list is more, instead of being 5 separate bullet points, it's kind of turning into 5 points on the periphery of a web, because they're all just very, very much interconnected.
It's like a big Venn diagram.
Yeah,
basically.
It's all those points intersect with each other more or less. None of them supersede one another. These are all like very much intermingled. This is really cool to see this come together and form up in this fashion. Yeah.
All right.
Does anybody have any points that they can think of right now? Because we can always do a part 2 of this episode. We can always come back to this. I would like to take this document and hone it a little bit more. I'll use my writing skills to take our ideas and we can create paragraphs of kind of what we spoke about.
I mean, honestly, I feel pretty good about this, in the sense of, like, this is a great encapsulated kind of, I feel like a good place to,
I think it's good. I think this is a good spot to end it.
I think so too. So maybe if we just want to quickly recap, we can recap
quickly recap. So the 5 points of the archetype of the warrior in the garden, right? So first is,
and again, these are our points. I'm sure people have written stuff about.
Yeah. So guys, leave what you think in the comments. Think if the order should be different. If you have ones that
if you want to add anything,
right? And again, this is organic. This will grow and change. This is not set in stone. We're not carving the tablets, the 10 Commandments right now.
We just came up with this.
So first in my eyes is accountability, and we already discussed that. Second, I would say, is physical fitness and health, and putting yourself first. Third, self-awareness and emotional intelligence, proper communication, not only just with yourself but with others. 4, creativity, honoring your creativity, honoring your creative spirit. Letting your art shine, not being afraid to pursue different styles of art and expression and express yourself and help you get in touch with the deeper layers of who you are on the inside. Sometimes things don't come out until you sit in front of the keyboard and start to type. Sometimes things don't come out until you put the pen to paper and start to write. Sometimes you don't know how you feel until you portray your emotions in a picture that you're drawing.
Right, and even more so in creativity specifically, it's not just when it comes to creating pieces of art, it's pulling from mystery, pulling from the unknown, being able to improvise, being able to think on your feet. Those are all parts of creativity. The more creative you are, the more able you are to improvise.
Right. We have to apply that to our martial arts with creative forms. Of course,
right.
We have to
creative forms, fighting,
in sparring. You're improvising.
You are improvising.
It's all creativity.
It's jazz.
Yeah,
it's all jazz.
Yeah, dude.
It's all jazz. So
my jazz is going to give you a bloody nose. I'm going to concuss you with jazz.
So you'd be surprised the amount of things you could do with a trombone. the second most sexual instrument, right behind the bagpipes.
Oh, that being said,
Okay, moving on.
and then number 5, being community oriented, right? Being community oriented, worrying about the people around you, taking care of others, right?
And thinking about
being
I'm so sorry.
others minded, you know.
And thinking about the consequences of your actions and not only how they can affect you, but those around you, and thinking about just at least being mindful of the ripple effects of what you do, what you say, and what you think.
And to touch on that at the end, you know, like to also know that you can be redeemed. That there is
True.
not like society may not forgive you, but you need to forgive you. You know?
Right? Yeah.
For all the crimes that I've done.
This World War II footage, just
Flashbacks.
Question here. This is I don't know where we can put this, but in you saying that, I just thought of a 6th one, which is self-forgiveness. I think could be.
Do you think that could rope into emotional intelligence? Because I think those are very much on the same branch of the tree.
I almost think it's the idea of if you are emotionally intelligent, you have the ability to self-forgive better.
I think forgiveness is just. I think that's the bullet. I think forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Of the self.
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Think
Or even grace.
Forgiveness. Forgiveness.
Forgiveness and grace.
Yeah, you're being graceful. Yeah. That's part of that, you know, because grace is not just the ability to move beautifully. It's you know, to move beautifully within yourself too. To have grace is not just to be like, you know, a ballerina. It's to be this level of forgiveness or emotionally intelligent or
Doesn't only mean you wear a tutu,
Yeah.
but the tutu is involved.
Yeah, so forgiveness
100%.
and grace for yourself and others, having patience.
not like a doctor, like having
Other
patience.
patients.
There we
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
No one on this couch can spell anything
Or
so.
diagnose anyone. So we have no patience.
But
Lots of patience.
But just as a quick thing, I think again, forgiveness is a skill, but it's also, man, you think about one of the hardest things for me, and for probably in general for a lot of people, is this idea of actually forgiving yourself for stuff. People kind of gloss over it, or they don't even look at it. They just kind of be like, "That hurts. I don't want to look at that."
I'm gonna put this in the box.
Yep, and leave it there. But then they just carry the box around with them, and it just gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And then you're like, "Man, I feel tired now," and forever.
I'm gonna have some pudding and take a nap.
Yeah. But the idea of allowing yourself to be forgiven by yourself from your, forgiveness from yourself, I think is really important. And again, it involves that kind of like leading into 3 of that emotional intelligence and that self-awareness and communication of deliberating with yourself, bargaining with yourself, and actually having the hard conversations with yourself. And through all that work, you are able to forgive yourself, and then you can feel the fruits of that labor come into your life, which is that weight being lifted. And again, as you said, kind of doing things with grace, doing things in the best possible way that you can, and not just barreling through stuff all the time. I think is important. I think the way you do things and the quality and the deliberateness and the quality in which you do stuff speaks volumes about you as a person. So.
Excellent. Also, this stuff, like as we're kind of finishing up this list, it's coming to mind that this sort of archetype, if one were to follow these principles well enough, they would become an exemplary individual in their community. This is somebody, if you get to know someone who embodies all of these traits, that's an individual who's capable of leadership and capable of being sort of one of the better ones, per se. You know, somebody in the community that even can be considered an alpha male.
And I think one thing we left out is being learned, like knowledge,
like wisdom,
seeking knowledge.
Yeah, but that's something that you get over time. I don't think that's a requisite. I think that walking this path and doing these things and being disciplined and honing your art, all that stuff comes secondary. So these are all things you have to bring to the table. The knowledge and the wisdom comes from the path. As at least that's the way that when you say that to me, it's what pops up.
I do kind of agree with. Well, I think what you're saying is very valuable, but I do agree with John in the sense of if you have all of these things, you are someone who is almost like predestined to want knowledge and to soak in knowledge for self-development and self-discovery almost, and to be a better person. So I think in general though, self-education and knowledge is tremendously important. But I think in following these things, that is a natural consequence of something. You'll attain that naturally through these things.
Right. Yeah, these are things you bring to the table.
Sure,
Whereas that wisdom
sure.
comes from acting out this archetype and these things.
Now, after this, we are going to get into our next segment, which is we have an hour-long video of ducks that we're going to watch. So, John, pull that up, and
then
we're going to live react.
And then we're going to go to the park because the ducks there are free. You can take them home.
No one stops you.
No one's going to stop
There's
you.
there's not a duck sheriff that's there.
There's no duck sheriff, and the bigger the truck, the more ducks you could fit in it. So
The bigger the truck, the more
Take it home, feed it
the
butter
more
until
duck.
the more duck. The bigger the truck, the more duck.
Take a mallet home, you feed it butter until it dies, and make foie
That's immoral.
That just got so dark. You're just forced. You don't have the tube.
Wait, how do you think they do that?
I know. Yeah, they just force feed them. With a tube.
It's just like the worst thing you can do to an animal with the minimal benefit. It's like, oh, is it that good? Like foie gras, is that fucking? I don't know. Maybe not. Duck fat, love it.
Yeah.
Do I? No, I don't. But
You guys are the ones that brought up ducks, okay?
That's
I'm
fair.
hungry.
the idea that I was kind of scratching the surface on is that, we all have a news feed that we scroll through endlessly, and we all have this like mindless drivel that pops up, and sometimes you don't even need a phone to do that. We just encounter that coming from our own brains. But I saw somebody talk about like the alpha male, and that's the reason why this kind of touched on that. And it's like, oh, men just like, there's like all these men that just organize themselves into a group, and then they just pick one who's the alpha male, and they say it's a self-proclamation, I'm the alpha male. And I just like, and you just see a million people that go along with it, like, yeah, men are dumb and alpha males don't exist, and I want to be a super alpha male. And it's like, no, it's to be alpha is not a proclamation. It's something that you negotiate with the world, and a lot of doing these things would create a person I would characterize as an alpha. Somebody who does all these things well.
And it's not through like again, Jordan Peterson says, it's not necessarily if you're doing it right through dominance. It's through competence.
Right, and none of these tenets.
It's also not relegated to sex or gender.
No,
right. An alpha is just, I mean it as like a community leader. When I say somebody embodies these traits, there's somebody who's admirable, and then others can look at.
They're the tip of the spear.
Right.
They're the tip of the spear.
They say, hey, that guy's got his shit together. Like, this dude's great. What do you think, man? Let's get your input on this stuff.
Sure.
And so, like, I just really wanted to bring up that point of, like, the hierarchy or social hierarchy and the way that, people get respected because you make a decision. Like, respect is earned. It's not just given out of the gate. And a respectable individual is someone who does these things, and they would get sorted up the hierarchy, and so
sure, naturally.
Yeah, and it's not a matter of proclamation; it's a matter of embodying these traits, and then having your relationship be recognized by others. Like just having your relationship with reality in conjunction with these ideas, because they're recognized externally. You don't just get to say who you are. You have to do the things to make you who you are, and and everyone around you will start to recognize what you do and assign a label to you based on those things.
They better recognize.
Right, they better fucking recognize. So, I mean, I'm not really sure where that was going to go. I don't know what you guys have any thoughts on the alpha male.
That is a great point. I think it's a good point. I think it's a good point because, like I had said in the opening monologue, if you want to call it that, the statesman Sifu, the community leader, the one that people look to. That's Qigong for us, and he's the first person that will admit if he doesn't know something too.
And that's an important quality to have. If you think there's nothing else to learn, you stop learning.
Right.
You stop growing if you say that there's nowhere else to go from here.
Right. The vastness of what you don't know will always be greater than what you do.
100%. And I think that's perfect. That's a really perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, man. And like I said, like the one thing that kind of struck me with that shitty meme that I saw was that, like, yeah, they just proclaim they're the alpha male. It's like, no, they don't. Like Qigong didn't proclaim himself to be who he is.
He also doesn't call himself an alpha male. He just is.
Right, but that's what I mean. It's performative. It's behavioral. Like
that's what makes you that.
You act out. Right, but not with the intentions.
Not through proclamation.
Like not with the intentions of like I'm going to be the alpha male. It's like I'm going to be true to myself and true to my community. I'm going to be self-aware. I'm going to embody all these traits we just listed, and the result of that is you become someone who's respectable.
If it comes in a true fashion, it is usually something that is not self-proclaimed, and it is usually something that is not openly discussed, but something that other people around you typically will come to their own conclusions with.
Right, because
if anything, if that even comes to that, that's usually how it. If it happens the right way, where it's again not the self-aggrandizing, deliberate thing like that, then
right. Because your identity within a community is negotiated. It's not proclaimed. Like, people figure out who you are and move from there. You don't just get to say, "Hey, listen, I'm the bravest one in the room." It's like, well, what have you done? It's like, I'm just brave, okay? You know, you have to, you know, the way that you know, your actions meet the real world is
there was
how
a possum in my garbage and I cried. So
so brave.
Yeah.
I just picture that.
It's like every animal hisses. That's outside of my house.
No one's happy to see Ryan except his mom. Even
Just
the wildlife.
swans and geese.
It's like the reverse Snow White. You're just all the animals hate you.
There's birds flying to my house and just stuff shitting on my stoop. Just a dog. Just.
Do you guys ever just sit in your living room and just like thump, like a bird just claps right into your window?
It tries to fly away.
Leaves a print on the window.
It's like half knocked out. It's like
it's like stunned.
Yeah.
That used to happen to me a lot as a kid, like in like middle school. Like, I'd be home from, you know, just getting ready to do homework and just thump, and then suddenly no homework gets done. And I'm like, oh, the bird!
Yeah.
You know? So
Yep.
that has a lot to do with what we're talking about. So it's
very on point, John.
I'm
Very poignant.
I'm glad we could stay on topic so well.
Is it worth fully summarizing one more time, or you think we're good?
I think we're good.
All right,
I think we're good.
Alrighty. Well,
Listen, guys, join the Discord. Be part of the chat. It's growing.
Please.
It's a growing community of people who can rely on each other and lean on each other, not just for training or for yucks and memes, but
Plenty of those.
when we need each other, when we need somebody like-minded to talk to. It's becoming that, and that's why I came up with the idea in the first place. So I'm very blessed and very glad that it's growing in that way. If you'd like to support us and help us do this full time, please click the link, go to the Patreon, and become a patron today. The more you donate now, the more help you give us now, the more content we can create, the more things we can put in motion, and the more we can do for you guys and for our patrons exclusively. We all are very, very busy people, and we make sure we carve out as much time as humanly possible for this, and this is the dream, and we want to be able to do this full time. That would be the absolute dream, is to be able to do this full time.
Sure.
Share the show. Please share the episodes with your friends. Put them on your story. Share them to your Facebook page. You know?
Yeah.
Anything else, guys?
I think we got it all out there, man. I think we left it all on the dance floor.
Well, Mr. John.
Well, thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you to all of our followers. And this has been the Martial Mind Podcast.